There we go. Good evening, folks. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered tonight. Mayor Mike Spano. Does racism still exist here in the city of Yonkers? Let's talk about it, folks.
Freddie wins.
Good evening, folks. I am Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. I want to go over clips from podcasts on social media in regards to Mayor Mike Spano. Some of them are in reference to the comments made about Congressman Jamal Bowman, a black congressman who many people said the comments by Mayor Mike Spano were racist and were asking for a public apology. Were his comments racist? Is there an underlying racism here in the city of Yonkers? We spoke about this yesterday with Anthony DiMaggio in terms of the lack of diversity in the police department. Good evening, folks. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics. I want to go over some clips here from a podcast called Black Westchester Magazine, and People Before Politics. And I want to discuss these podcasts afterwards. The individuals on these podcasts are talking about Mike Spano, the current mayor, and comments he made to or about Jamal Bowman and saying that he should be arrested for the way he was voting on a bill. And many people said those were racist comments. They had racial undertones. He was weaponizing the police against a black man. As we all know, we went through this, movement very recently with BLM, and a lot of black men were killed at the hands of police. Not here to discuss that or debate that, just mentioning the environment that we have been in and we're in around that time, and we still are in. And many people have reached out to me and have spoken to me about feeling discriminated against, wondering why is it that specifically black females don't do well within our department, specifically the schools, and people who are currently working there who have been fired have reached out to me in regard to this. So I wanted to talk about this. Let's go over this podcast or this clip here first. This is a Damon K. Jones.
I've known Mike Spano for most of my correction career. I met him when he was a assemblyman and a Republican. I've watched his career, and I'm at a loss for words because I'm kind of disappointed, to the fact that he will play on the ignorance of the voter, because number one, the congressman has nothing to do with bail reform. He has no vote in the state legislation, and for someone that's a former assemblyman for the state and someone who's a current mayor of one of the largest cities in the state, I think that he is well aware of the political process and what takes place, especially with state legislation. If he wanted to have any beef about the bail reform, he should talk to his senator, Andrea Stewart Cousins. That critique should have went to her, not Jamal Bowman, because when the bail reform law was passed, Jamal Bowman wasn't even a congressman. So I don't understand how he made the connection to bail reform to Congressman Bowman.
Yeah.
And to say that he should have been arrested for making a vote is ludicrous.
Mm-hmm.
So with all the corruption of politicians and all the lousy votes of politicians in local, state, county, he's going to say that Mr. Bowman, Congressman Bowman, should be arrested. Well, there's a lot of other politicians that he could have made that statement with too, but he didn't.
Yeah,
he made it towards a black man.
That's right.
And I'm watching the airwaves to see what black politician will critique him Now, you know, we have a lot of local organizations, but not one politician, right? We have Biaggi, but where are the Black politicians in critiquing him and asking him to apologize? Congressman Bowman, where are they at? I'm quietly waiting to see before I put pen to paper if they're going to say something, because then we cannot, if we're not going to correct ourselves as Democrats. I'm a registered Democrat, right? If we're not going to correct ourselves as Democrats, then you can't say nothing to the Republicans for not saying nothing to Trump. You become a hypocrite. You become a complete hypocrite.
Yeah, if you don't say anything to Donald Trump about, or say anything to other Democrats who stay silent when fellow Democrats make comments that are deemed as racist by, you know, a large group of people, and I mean a lot of people, you know, not just one person saying it. And so, okay, you know, but a lot of people were saying it, and organizations came out and spoke out against it. Then, you know, and you're an elected official and you're Black, you know, and you stay quiet, then you're just as guilty. And you can't say anything to a Republican or Donald Trump when he's making racial comments, because while you may not be making the comments yourself, your silence makes you just as guilty, just as complicit, right? Now, I remember these comments. I'm not, you know, I'm Puerto Rican. I'm sure, you know, my DNA, if you want to get biological here, but, you know, I didn't grow up as, you know, a Black male, although I have experienced, you know, racism, you know, I have been discriminated against. So I can't invalidate the feelings of the Black community. And I think what Mike Spano did wrong here is that he didn't apologize, right? He should at least have said sorry. People were upset, people were offended, you know, and I've done this, and I did it very recently, just maybe 2 days ago, right? I apologized to someone, even though I felt that I may have been right, or what I said wasn't wrong. It still made someone feel a certain way, you know, however, whether it's hurt, disrespected, you know, it angers them, you still apologize for that, you know. And I think that the mayor's and his team's, you know, idea of not responding, or reasoning for not responding, was to not give it any life, but it already had life, right? And you had organizations coming out, you had, you know, statements being put out, and you have people talking about it, right? And now we're still talking about it, right? And it also then makes you look like you don't care, and you're really indifferent about the way the Black community feels. And so now people are saying, well, look what the mayor's been going around doing recently, and he's been, you know, engaging a lot more of the Black community, organizations within the Black community, you know, reaching out to this particular group because he is wanting their votes. He knows that it's important, and people are even saying that he's pandering, right, just because it's election season, but he's doing this more so with the Black community. And we've seen it very recently, and I don't want to name the organizations and the events because I don't want to put them in this, but, you know, you've all seen this. Is this just pandering, or is this, you know, the mayor being genuine and caring about the Black community? But that's hard to believe, you know, and I'm not saying that the mayor's a racist or doesn't care, but it's hard to believe based on the actions and the policies that we have seen, right? And one of the things that they speak about is the affordable housing ordinance and what the vetoing of that ordinance says, right? Sure, it says the housing ordinance is not going to pass, but what other message does it send to people, specifically the Black community and even the Hispanic community, right? So I want to go to the next clip here. This is Christopher Johnson. Christopher Johnson and the Spanos have had a, you know, long history of not getting along, you know, and they've been going after him. He's, you know, somewhat been going after them. He hasn't been as vocal as he actually is here. And I thought that, you know, where's this energy, Chris? You need it, you know, and they're going after you. But Chris also chimes in this conversation and hear what he has to say.
Point out, Sandy, I think everything that you said, all of the guests, everything that you said have been on point, especially the comments regarding who's us, who is us. And I think the reality is, you know, someone in the comments talking about dog whistle, and can we talk about that when it's not, you know, F this N, right? Which is a loud whistle that everyone can hear. Everyone knows what it means, and there's no question about it. A dog whistle is set for a very specific group of people to hear what was being said. And so when the mayor says he should be arrested and he's not one of us, and starts talking about bail reform that obviously disproportionately negatively affected Black and brown people, those comments, and in their totality, separately and together, were meant for specific people to hear. Oh, this man is not like us, and do not support him because he is not one of us.
That's right. Agreed.
So what Christopher Johnson is saying there basically is that there was maybe some kind of, underlying message there that the mayor may have been given to people, maybe his supporters, and saying he's not one of us, don't support him, no longer support him. We're not going to back this man anymore moving forward. And as you've seen, they did put their energy. I forgot who was it, Vidat Gashi who ran against him, and I believe, and he lost. So they wanted to get him out after this situation. Christopher Johnson, obviously he's very upset by it and he's hurt. And I'm not going to take away the way he feels and again invalidate him. I don't think that's ever a good thing to do. But I do want to say that I don't know if the mayor, is racist in the sense that he doesn't like Black people, doesn't want to be around Black people, is intentionally or purposely targeting himself anyway. I mean himself, the mayor himself, targeting Black people for anything negative. I think that it's just a disconnect with the Black community. The mayor, not just being a white man necessarily, but being of a certain social class, right? A certain, economic class, naturally has this disconnect where, his engagement with this community seems disingenuous, right? If it isn't, it seems that way. And, his concerns are not really so much of this community or the Hispanic community, but more so of, those that he engages on a daily basis, the people within his circle and his economic and social class, right? And what will best benefit them. So while I'm not giving a reasoning or justification or trying to, justify what he may do or may not do, what I'm saying is that it's not an intentional or direct, in my opinion. It's more of an indirect thing. And this is the problem. And this is exactly why, we need to have more diversity within our city government, right? And diversity that's truly of independent mind and one that represents the people, that is not controlled by the very people that, we're speaking about, that, don't care about this specific group, right? And although our council is made up of 4 Black women, they maybe in the look, may reflect, or, appear to represent the Black community or the Hispanic community in their policy making, in their decisions, in what they do as council members. It suggests something very much different, right? But that's not because they are the ones in charge or in control of their decisions, right? Or their votes. So again, this whole identity politics, right, and voting for people because they look like you, right, and you want to see the first Black this, didn't really work out so much for us when those individuals are controlled by the very people, we're trying to get out of, or you trying to get out of office, right? So it kind of backfired there. And so we have to also understand that when we go to vote, next time. This is Chris Johnson again here. I just want to play some.
Knows what he's doing. He knows what he's saying. He knows exactly what. And if he didn't, Mike Spano's been elected for 30 years. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's saying. He knows exactly what. And if he didn't, if there was a mistake, if he misspoke, if he didn't mean it that way, then he should apologize. And there's been no apology.
I think that's where I agree most with Chris Johnson, is that, whether you meant to say it that way or not, you still should have apologized for people that you may have offended or may have hurt, right? I think that's just the right thing to do. And I think, whether you meant to do something, wrong or not, it still ended up being a negative, because when people were hurt by it, you didn't acknowledge their hurt. You did not acknowledge their anger, acknowledge how it made them feel, and apologize for that, right? And so that further cements their, and other people's, opinion that the mayor does not care about Black people, Hispanics, minorities of this community, all right, at all. because he couldn't even apologize when they expressed their hurt in the words that he said. All right. So that's something maybe his team can work on, because I think it's very important. And so, this attitude, right, or this, way of thinking, this mindset maybe that the mayor has, again, because of his social and economic class. I mean, he's married to Mary Calvi. She's on, I think, Entertainment Tonight. She makes $1 million a year, 2 million, whatever. It's so far, from the people that are on the Southwest side, right, and the South side. There's a disconnect, right, and there's not a genuine connection when the mayor does maybe come around the group. And so people sense that, right? And so again, the mayor, when he's thinking about what we're going to do for the city, he's thinking about these individuals, these higher income earners, right? Let's bring in luxury developments. Let's bring in fancy steakhouses and restaurants, right? But he's not considering the people, the majority of the people that live in his city, because he's not necessarily connected to them, because he's at a different social and economic class, right? And so then when you appoint people, your friends and family within different departments as the heads, and these individuals make so much money, and then they become a part of this social elite, right? That then trickles down to whatever department they are in charge of, they are the head of. That culture trickles down, because ultimately everything starts at the top. And so if you have this culture of, focusing mostly on certain individuals, not considering the needs of individuals that you're disconnected with, not making a true, genuine effort to connect with those individuals, right? You're going to naturally just not think of them. You're going to naturally forget about them. You're going to naturally focus on your friends, focus on your family. You're going to put them in charge, and then they're going to do the same all the way on down. And that's what happens. And then we have a culture of indirect racism, maybe, right? And we can call that, and it develops into a culture, right? So we call it cultural racism, right? What is cultural racism? Right? And I'm going to go down here. By the beginnings of the 1970s, most overt, right, which is in your face, forms of racism had disappeared in Western countries. Colonialism was virtually dead. And with the striking exception of South Africa, talking about apartheid, majority rule had replaced European minority rule. Yet racial inequality persisted, and in some cases had worsened, judging by the standard socioeconomic indicators. So had worsened, judging by standard socioeconomic indicators. And again, this is where I talk about economic and social class, right? This was true on a global scale. When First World War, I'm going to skip that. Scholars have struggled to understand the apparent, stubborn, persistent of racial inequality. They have tried to identify the more covert forms of racism has taken since the 1970s, including its varied permeations in different historical, national, and local settings. You're here. They have also tried to explain the processes that foster racial inequality without overtly targeting its victims, right? So again, they have also tried to explain the processes that foster racial inequality without overtly targeting its victims. And so again, it's a culture that develops. And so you're not targeting this person necessarily because they're a Black woman, but you don't understand them. You don't have any similarities. You're disconnected. You have a perceived, assumption about them because they're Black, maybe because they're a woman. And so you base your ideas on this person on what you see on TV, social media, which is very skewed and biased, right? And you're only around your certain individual friends, your high society. We go into, Zupas and Xaviers, right? And so you don't connect with these individuals, right? And so when they come around, it's a weird, strange, kind of engagement. So there's a social, class, an economic class. And so this leads to this racial, indirect culture of racism that exists. And so you see it just in the hiring process, in the promotion process, right? Look at all the captains and chiefs that we showed, deputy chiefs that we showed yesterday on the podcast with Anthony DiMaggio. Not one was Black, not one was Hispanic. So the highest rank a Hispanic or a Black officer has made is to lieutenant. And why is that? In all the years, that blacks have been hired, right? And even I understand that many do not score well, as the mayor says, and even in those comments, it just comes off, as a bit of, just maybe just lacking an understanding on how to, be sensitive, right? We just don't, most of them are white. They get 100%. That's just how it is. Okay, but why is it? And you're not trying to understand why it is that way. And there's many reasons. And again, social class. Many of those individuals that get hundreds are told about this test so far in advance that they study hard. They know where to get the resources, the materials to study for this. They're well prepared. A Hispanic or Black inner city Yonkers may just realize that the test is coming up when they put the big banner up on the bridge that goes across Nepperhan. And then they have to figure out, how will they study? Where are the materials? How much will these materials cost? Do they offer them for free? Maybe they do, but are they announcing it? To who? To and where? So see, in order for you to try and change this cultural racism, this unintentional systematic racism, you have to intentionally make an effort to do so. And you then have to intentionally engage that community and say, hey, listen, we lack minorities within the ranks of captains, deputy chiefs, and even a commissioner. And it's been a long time now. Why is it? Is it because they're not scoring high enough? Is it because they're not doing well enough? Well, let's work on this. What's the reason they're not? Is it just because white people are just better? Yeah, white people are just better. No, it's not, because white people are not better than blacks. Blacks are not better than whites. Hispanics are not better than either, and vice versa. We are all human with different experiences and access to different resources and opportunities. And that makes all the difference. Forget skin color. Doesn't matter. I'm Puerto Rican. I grew up in the hood, right? Everyone spoke Spanish. I danced merengue and salsa. But I can go in a boardroom full of all kinds of people, a lot of white people, and I can hold my own and have a conversation and do well and leave there confidently knowing that I excelled in that boardroom. But there are many who look like me who will not be able to do that because they don't have the experiences that I was fortunate enough to have. But someone gave me these experiences. Someone intentionally said, hey, Freddie, I'm going to help you. I'm going to show you these things and I'm going to guide you so then you can take off with it, right? And so that's what we need to do. We have to intentionally change the culture. So we have to see more promotion of minorities. But again, not just because they're minorities, because I don't agree with that. They have to be qualified. They have to be just as good, if not better, than the person they're going to beat for the position. And so we have to make sure that they're being prepared for that, right? And that's what I'm saying. So we have to watch this. And Mayor, if you're not sure, you're not understanding why, maybe it's this culture, right? So I just want to finish that real quick. There's a general agreement that these new forms are both complex and subtle, and that they operate in ways that do not require the formal assistance of educational, legal, or other institutions. Several terms have emerged to characterize what is sometimes called the new racism, right? These include laissez-faire racism, cultural fundamentalism, unmarked racism, neo-racism, colorblind racism, and cultural racism. So I just wanted to give that quick definition of that and go on to this next video here.
If Congressman Bowman, right, is not representing whatever us is, so when he vetoed the increase in affordable housing, who was he representing?
This is a good point.
Who is he representing?
Because, we're talking about Spano, right? Talking about
right, the Mayor Spano, when he vetoed to increase affordable housing in Yonkers, and we know that affects, poor Black, Latino, and poor white.
That's right.
But who was the us he was representing when he vetoed that?
So he's never accountable for the harm. He's never accountable for the harm.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So he's just a hypocrite. So that's him just being hypocritical.
So that's a great point. That's a very, very great point. We are in a housing crisis. The city, the county, the state, the country, a national housing crisis. It's hard for people to find a place that they can afford to live. We have been dealing with this for I don't know how long now. Since I started Basement Politics, I've been talking about the affordable housing ordinance that was actually authored by Mike Cater. Shanae Williams piggybacked on it and introduced it because he assumed that a Black woman would have better success. Right? We're playing this identity politics, but it didn't matter. And although Tasha Diaz was another council person who supported it from the very beginning, she would ultimately disappoint the city and her constituents. The mayor vetoed the affordable housing ordinance that would have changed it from 10%, where it's at now, up to 20%, adding an additional 10%. But the mayor's reasoning for that was the developers would not come. They would not build if the housing ordinance was at 20% and we need the development. The development will bring jobs and will also bring affordable housing because they're still 10%. 2 years later, we see that that's really not the case. Many people have been actually evicted from those new apartments. They cannot afford the rent. And it's caused the rents of all housing around the area to go up, pricing people out from old apartment buildings that they've been around forever. They no longer can afford that. And many of the people that have been priced out are Blacks. And so while the mayor is a Democrat, his veto of the affordable housing is very much a Republican move. And so people, again, remember that he once was a Republican. And so that also showed that the mayor did not care about those who are in need of affordable housing, which is a large percentage of the population of the city of Yonkers. Many of them, the majority, are Black and Hispanic. And so to a lot of people, not only did that not increase the affordable housing, but it sent the message that the mayor does not care about Hispanic and Blacks. And yes, poor whites as well. Because again, it's a social and economical problem. Socioeconomic class. He's detached. He's disconnected. And it happens. And I see it. I see it. I can go in rooms with people that have a lot of money and then go in the poorest of neighborhoods. And I can see the two different worlds. It's so noticeable. And I'm not, again, excusing the mayor, because as a mayor and a leader, you need to make an intentional act to change that. You can't ignore it. It's a fact. We need a more affordable housing. And they have yet to pass a new affordable housing ordinance. And what further adds insult to injury is the fact that they were able to pass the term limit extension in such a short amount of time, and yet and still no new affordable housing ordinance. And who did the term limit extension benefit ultimately, or who will it benefit ultimately? Many people believe, well, Mayor Mike Spano, a white man. This was introduced by the first Black city council president. But yet, we still do not have an affordable housing ordinance that will truly make some kind of an impact in the housing crisis we have here in the city of Yonkers, which impacts largely Blacks and Hispanics. And yes, poor whites too. Let's go to the next video.
All white men as commissioners in law enforcement and not one person of color, because we get left out, right? And nobody says anything. And I could almost guarantee you, right, there's going to be Negroes that's going to be standing with him when he runs for a state or county position, even after this. Because see, we just fall in line. And that's what we usually do, and we literally get nothing.
So I just want to say,
so he made the point that Anthony DiMaggio made yesterday. There are no high-ranking, members in law enforcement that are Black or even Hispanic, and he believes that that's intentional, that he knows what he's doing. And Anthony DiMaggio made a good point. He needs individuals in there that he knows will do exactly what it is they need them to do. But I'm sure you could find Black people like that. and Hispanics. We see them already. As Damian Jones said, he knows that there will be Black elected officials and other community leaders, leaders of organizations that will support these elected officials who do not acknowledge the fact that there is a lack of diversity within the upper ranks of law enforcement, or the lack of diversity within the upper management of any of the departments here in the city of Yonkers, right? They will, because they are all about self-preservation. They care about themselves. And I see this all too often on my climbing of this ladder to success that we all are on. We will kick our own down. We will climb over their backs and kick them in the head as we pass them on by, because we want to be the one to be at the top, rather than get together and unite and be a strong influence and make a real impact and change what it is we complain about. Because sure, everything I said here is true, or may be true. Some of it might be true, but we can't control that. What we can control is how we vote. What we can control is what we do. And what we need to do is unite. Stop the infighting. Let's be adults. Let's understand what the problems are. Let's find real solutions. Let's get behind real candidates, and let's get out there and vote. Because change takes work from us, the people. I can present you the information, but it's up to you to take action. I'm Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered, folks. Thank you. Have a beautiful night. I appreciate it. Thank you for supporting. That wasn't a nonsense excuse. That business with the developers. The truth is that many of the Spano supporters just want him to do everything he can to prevent the Mount Vernonization of Yonkers. You know, and I did hear, and I can't say this is true, but people are going around saying that the mayor's people were telling different housing organizations on the east side that if he did not get reelected, that the Blacks would take over. I don't think that's true. Even if he were not reelected, Blacks only make up about 19% of the population. Now the Hispanics, we can take over. Ándale, ándale, vámonos. ¿Qué estamos haciendo? Estamos jodiendo. Got to do this shit. We are 43%. There's a lot of us. I don't care if you're Mexican. I don't care if you're Dominican. I don't care if you're Puerto Rican. Doesn't matter to me. Do you speak Spanish? Then let's rock and roll. I'm Freddie Vasquez. Have a beautiful night. And by the way, I love all people. I want us all to unite. And one day we will not see color, but we will see people for who they are. Hopefully we will do that this election. We will see these elected officials for who they are and make the right decision. June 27th is primary day. June 17th is early voting. Make your vote count. You are important. Make sure you are heard. Have a beautiful night. Happy Tuesday. Peace out.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez. You're watching Basement Politics with my dad, Freddie Vasquez.
I am Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics Unfiltered. Thank you, folks, for supporting and watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. And feel free to come up to me and say hello. I always welcome the love.
Freddie wins. Fatality.
Don't forget, email me all the information. Let me know. Freddie Vasquez will take care of it at politicwithfred@gmail.com. Politicwithfred@gmail.com. I am Freddie Vasquez. This is Basement Politics. We are Yonkers. I love you guys. Oh, I do.
Thank you for watching Basement Politics with my husband, Freddie Vasquez.
Freddie wins. Fatality.